Good morning, Ms. Tennison.
Good morning.
I want to thank you for agreeing for this interview. We're with the Cotton Museum here in Hunt County, and we're really excited to have you because you have been very involved in the community. And I'd like to ask you a couple questions. Okay?
That's fine.
Okay. Today's date is October the 15th, 2020. Yes, did you grow up in Hunt County?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I've lived here all my life, never lived anywhere else. I only left long enough to go to college and graduate, and I came back, and I've been here ever since.
Oh, okay. Now, what did you attend college? That's exciting.
Prairie View A&M University. It was college at the time. Prairie View A&M College in Prairie View, Texas.
Okay, and your major?
Home economics, and my minor was in teaching education.
Okay, then. Well, tell us a little bit about your teaching experience.
I taught high school, 9th grade through 12th grade. I taught food and nutrition science, housing, clothing, and that's all.
Okay.
And during the time that I taught school, I was the advisor for a group called the FCCLA. I had over 40 students in my group. I had a lot of my group who were state officers, regional officers, and national officers, and they participated and they won awards.
Oh, wonderful.
And that's the highlight of my teaching career.
Oh, that is so good.
And most of those students are grown now, and I see them. Some of them call me. Some of them are like, they consider me their second mom. So wherever I go, I travel a lot. Sometimes I was in New Orleans, and I ran into one of my students, and she came back to the hotel and carried me to dinner. Wherever I see them, they always recognize me. And sometimes some of them come and visit my church.
Oh, that is wonderful, man. So I can hear you're proud of the achievement. So were there any barriers that you experienced while teaching?
While teaching, not really.
Okay. Okay, then.
Because I started teaching late in life. I had already worked 30 years somewhere else.
Okay.
Before, by the time I started teaching, we segregation wasn't going on or nothing like that.
Okay.
So, no, not really.
That is good. You had mentioned you had worked 30 years somewhere else. Let's go into your work experience a little bit. Okay.
I worked 10 years at Texas Instruments. And, when we grew up, we were always taught to know that if somebody else can do it, we can do it. Even though I may not have learned it in college, if it was available, a job available, I could learn how to do it.
Oh, wow.
So I did a lot of things that were self-taught. When I worked at TI, I worked for, I started out on the lowest level of assembly, but I never liked assembly. I wanted to be in an office. I wanted to have my own office. So, they post jobs and I would apply for them. So I worked for 12 programmers, and I was like their computer tech. When they wrote their programs, they bring their programs to me to run. And this was back in the day where you feed the cards in, and then you get a printout. And if their program was like 1 or 2 pages, something was wrong. So what I started doing was I taught myself how to key punch. I would read the error messages. I could actually correct their program. And when they come to pick up their program, I give them the first run. And then I say, but this is what I did, and this is how it run. And most times it would be right. So I made myself valuable to my group. And then a guy came from England, and he needed a tech. So I don't even remember how I got moved from the computer room to being his personal tech. But what he did was design integrated circuits. So I was able to, once he designed it, I tested, I did any corrections needed, I pack it and ship it when it come back, correct errors or whatever. So I was always trying to be top notch.
That's good.
I always wanted to be the best and hard to replace.
Yes.
So he stayed in Texas 2 years. So when he went back, I went back to my programming group. Then when my husband died, I quit work. I had 4 kids and I just couldn't work. I couldn't concentrate. They were very young. So I quit work and I didn't work anywhere for a long time. Then I decided to go back to work, and that's when I went to Southwestern Bell.
Okay.
And I know you're probably wondering, why didn't you use your college degree? It was hard to get a job in Greenville in my field because my major was teaching home economics. Those teachers stayed till they die or retire. So I said, well, I'm going to have to drive to Dallas to work. I'm going to make teachers wasn't getting paid a lot of money. So that's how I ended up at Southwestern Bell. So I worked there 20 years before retiring. And I had a lot of interesting jobs. I mean, I credit everything that I was able to do and positions I held to knowing God.
Yes.
Because I was shown favor all the time. I worked in a office where I worked for a first line supervisor, second and third. And I was like their secretary. And I had those skills from college.
Wow. Okay.
So I had put that in here where you asked me who my favorite teacher was. So if you don't mind, can I read from this? You asked me, first you had asked me what were some of my fondest memories. So I said eating homemade ice cream and cake on my Aunt Althor's porch on the corner of Sale and Marshall Street. And it's hardly no houses up there now, but they're starting to be them. And another thing was going to my church, Bethlehem Baptist Church. It was down on the corner at that time of Sale Street. And then another favorite memory I had was walking to Booker T Elementary School, going across the tracks. And I always had a cousin I walked with. Her name was Dolly Nail. Then when I got in high school, I walked the tracks going in the west direction, going to Carver. And now it's LP Waters Head Start, I think. But that was my high school, and I walked with my cousin Skeeter, because Mom and Daddy, you know, they make sure somebody with you all the time. And one of my fondest memories is when I finished high school, I was valedictorian of my class. And getting out of college was another milestone. I was so happy to graduate college. And so let me see, you asked me about my favorite teachers. I had 5. I thought it was the next question. My favorite teachers. I can't just say I had one because I had 5 that was very instrumental in my education and my career. I had Miss Nina Durham, who was my algebra and math teacher. She was the best math teacher ever. And if you went through one of her classes, you were going to know it. So when I got to college, I didn't have no trouble with math because I had that good teacher. And what I had forgotten was one summer I was at school and she was there doing graduate work. So I had my home teacher. If I got with problems at college, she was there to help me. So, you know, I never forget that because, you know, we can't do anything by ourselves. So I always appreciated that help. Then the next teacher I had was Miss Othelma Davidson. Coach Davidson, who taught forever at school, was her brother-in-law.
Oh, okay.
She taught me in high school typing. And during that time when you took the typing class, the keys were blind. So you learn how to type, and you learn how to type with speed. And then after her, Dr. Myrna Gilstrap and Miss I got Dorothy Edwards. They did their student teaching under her. So they were my teachers too, because you took typing in the 11th and 12th grade. So they, having a student teacher, mean you had to do everything right. You learn how to write letters, you learn how to write resumes, you learn how to write bios, and so those teachers gave me the foundation that I had for the first 30 years of my career.
That's fantastic.
And every time I get on the computer, I think about them. Because had they not been good teachers, I wouldn't have been good at what I did. And I'm sure every one of their students would say the same thing.
And you became the valedictorian
Of my class.
Wonderful.
In high school, yes. And one more teacher, and she never taught me, but she was my champion, my encourager, and that's Linda Willis. When I had quit work and retired at Southwestern Bell, she always would say, "Hey, why don't you get a job teaching?" And I just said, well, they won't hire me, because at that time my certification was strictly high school, and then they needed teachers, elementary need teachers, but she encouraged me to go back to get that certification. And then she would bring me all the books I need. And then she said, you just need to apply. I said, girl, they're not going to hire me. I said, I've been out of college too long. But finally, she talked me into it. And I applied. I got hired. And I taught 8 years. And I only quit teaching because I had a surgery that left me with dizzy spells all the time. And one time I actually passed out at school. So that's why I quit teaching school, because I loved it. I loved my kids. But those were people who were instrumental in my career. I had other people in my life, like my pastor, my pastor's wife, that encouraged me, period, just in daily living. But my parents taught us when we were growing up not to think of ourselves as different, but always thought of ourselves as being important as the next person. You never hold your head down. My dad would always say, you're Irvin. He would always say, and Irvins are not quitters, we are achievers.
Oh, wonderful.
And they proved that by, when we went to school, I have 4 siblings, so it's 5 of us. Our parents worked 2 jobs apiece. I mean, every day they worked 2 jobs. And later in life, by the time I was in high school, they were business owners. My daddy was the first black plumber that had his own office. His office was down on Wesley Street by that track. You know where the fruit stand, the vegetable stand used to be?
Yes,
His office, where they have a car lot there.
Yeah,
His office was there.
Okay.
Later, he built an office out on Sockwell by the city park.
Gotcha, okay.
And that building, half was a plumbing shop and half was my mama's florist.
Oh,
so
okay.
they became entrepreneurs. And that's when they built their home out there on Sockwell. But they always taught us, if anybody else can do it, you can do it too. So I grew up with that mentality. I would self-teach myself. Anything anybody else could do, if I wanted to do it, even if I had to stay after work or work over break. And, they don't stop you from learning.
No, they don't.
I said, shoot, I'm going to be a boss. I'm going to be in my own office, And that I strived to do that. And that was because I was raised that way. And even though when we were growing up, I can remember my mom standing in line for cheese. We'd get Salvation Army boxes on the porch with groceries, you know. But I never considered ourselves poor. I guess I was too dumb to know we were poor because my parents lived like we were rich. But we were getting our stuff same place everybody else was. You know, you live in a neighborhood where everybody, if you need sugar, you just go next door. And my dad raised pigs, he raised cows, so we had meat. He'd go down to East Texas on their homeland, he farmed, he raised watermelon, sweet potatoes. And a lot of times when me and my friends would come home from college, we'd make our spending change riding on the back of the truck, selling watermelon, selling sweet potatoes with my daddy. So that's just how we were raised, to always, you know, be a doer. Don't expect anybody to give you anything. And all of me and my siblings, we finished college.
What a blessing.
And we had 3 at school. Me, Wayne, and George were at Prairie View at the same time. And when I look at the struggle I had sending my kids, I don't know how they did. I do not. But my mom would make calendars, you know, like pictures like this. Actually, she made this. You know, they used to make calendars with beautiful pictures. She would take those pictures and frame them and sell them at work. She used to work, she worked at L3, but she worked in the cafeteria. Then she went to Kraft Foods, and she retired from Kraft. But she sell those pictures. She collect cans. Nothing was above, you know, beneath her if it was honest money. And that's what we were taught to do, is to be honest in whatever you do. And whatever you do, be the best that you could be at doing it. Don't have to do nothing. And anything that's legal, do it. If it's riding a trash truck. You know, we were raised that way, and don't ever think little of yourself. So whatever we did to make our living, we worked doing. When we went to school, we were just proud to do it. And you know, so and let's see what else.
You said what?
Can you talk about your mom's flower shop?
Yes. She started out at home making corsages. She was very talented, because I can remember when we grew up, she made our clothes until we got big enough to realize they didn't come from the store. And our friends, you know, would start making fun, but then they started buying them at the store. But she started making, she would make purses, crochet, knit. And she, I don't know how she really, well, I guess the way she got started with a flower shop, they used to have craft shows in Dallas. So she hooked up with this girl from Turl, and she'd take her corsages and her purses, and, you know, she'd make those shawl things, you know, and she'd take that stuff, and she saw a lot of things going to those shows in Dallas. So she decided she wanted to open a craft store. So it started out being a craft store. You know, she'd go to the World Trade Center, buy stuff and bring it back. And then she decided she could open up a florist. She was like a caterer. She would do weddings. So she decided she should start doing her own flowers. So she had like when you go in the florist, they have the cool box, the walk-in box, all that was in her florist. So she had live flowers. She would go to Dallas and pick up her flowers. So she would order them. So she would make flower arrangements. It was just like going to, what's this florist up here, Atkinson? When you walk in her store, but she also had crafts in her store as well. So, is that what you meant?
So. And you covered some of your daddy's work. You said he
was a plumber.
One of the first blacks here.
Yeah, he was one of the first black plumbers that had his own office. He actually You know, he did like he was connected to builders like Charles Brown, Carroll. I can't think of all of their names, but when they built new houses, he did all of their plumbing.
Okay.
You know, they'd be everywhere: Greenville, Garland, Rockwall, Dallas, wherever the jobs were. And that's how my husband became self-employed.
Okay.
He would do cleanup and
Okay.
make ready.
Okay.
So wherever Daddy worked, he had a job. You know,
Oh, good.
you know how when they build houses, you do them in 3 phases: the rough end, the stack out, and the completion. Well, every time Daddy rough end, my husband clean up. Every time he stack out, my husband clean up. And every time he finished a job, my husband was able to do the make ready for sale.
Oh, okay.
On houses.
Okay.
So
yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, I mean, just to hear, we're gonna take this challenge and we're gonna make this work. That is so exciting. And your career is also spans to civic activities.
yeah.
Yeah, and you served on the city council. Would you like to talk about some of your activities on the city council?
Yes.
Okay.
I was on the council 9 years. And I'm going to tell you the main reason I didn't serve the 12. I broke a tooth. And I still don't have those teeth. And it got infected and they pulled it. But I have allergies, so they couldn't do like an implant. My teeth snap over my teeth. So I would be embarrassed up there talking at the council because I didn't have my tooth. So when I finished the first 3 years, you know, you could do 6 in a row. When I finished that 3, I said, I'm done. And they begged me to stay, but I wouldn't stay. But when I first got on the council, I was blessed to have a good mayor. And, you know, prejudice is really alive in Greenville, even more so when I first got on the council. Because there were a lot of people who did not want me to have that position. Actually, one night, my first years, they actually had to remove a white man from the chambers because he was saying I didn't deserve to have. Every time I would go to comment on something, he would just get violent. And she don't deserve to be there. He claimed so till the police, as you know, it always was one, they had to remove him. And I won't call his name, but he's an attorney in Greenville. But anyway, I don't even know if he remember that. But he went to school with some of my boys. You know, he was in Hattie, and he had a problem with one of them, and he didn't want me on the council. But anyway, I was blessed to come in under Mayor Gladden. And under him, he wanted me to learn everything that I could. And at the same time, I had a city manager, Ed Thatcher. He made sure I knew about all the trainings. And when I would go to the conventions, you know, he was kind of hesitant to tell me. But one day he said, I hope you don't take this wrong. He said, but if you want to learn quickly what to do on the council, join the Black Caucus. And I said, okay. So that's what I did, was I joined the Black Caucus, and he was right. I learned a lot about rules and regulations, and I don't know, I took it serious. My motto when I ran was, let your vote be your voice. And I truly wanted to be that voice for citizens. So when I was in the council chambers, I studied my agenda from front to back. I read everything. And anything that I thought was not beneficial for the city and the people, I spoke up against to try to get it right so we could put it into law. And if I was doubtful and I just didn't care, but it looked like it was going to affect the people some kind of way, even though it didn't affect me, I would actually get out and go door to door tell them this is on the agenda this week. What is your opinion? What would you like for me to say? How would you like for me to vote? And if I didn't go door to door, I still had my campaign list. I get on the phone. This is Hattie Tennison. I'm your council person. We're going to talk about this and that. I actually wanted to be the voice for the people. And I guess I enjoyed being on the council because it was encouraging for me to know I was accepted on the council, you know, and my voice mattered. And I guess my second year on the council, the city manager had so much faith in me. He signed me up to train new council members in Tyler, Texas. I said, what? He said, you already told them you would do it. You can do it. I said, I'm new myself. He said, but you know a lot. And I actually, for about 3 years, I would go, when they got new council members, I would go and train their council members. And I only used the book that Greenville had given me to, you know, learn how to be a council member. But I did that, but they also saw enough in me. To place me on the North Central Texas Council of Government. I was on that board for 2 years, and I was on the Attorney General's advisory board for a couple of years. And, you know, reaching out in those areas also helped me be a better local council person. So, you know, I had fun being on the council, and sometimes, you know, you don't always agree. And sometimes I would be on the winning side. Sometimes I'd be on the losing side. But that's how life is. You know, I didn't take it personal. Because when I push that button, they say yes or no. I'm trying to make the best decision that I can. So I enjoyed doing that. And I enjoyed some of my favorite people was Tom Oliver, Mary Gladden, and Ed Thatcher, and Byron Chipwood. Those were some of my favorite people to work with when I was on the council.
And you were very instrumental in achieving a lot of things, especially the Dr. Martin Luther King sign. And
oh, that's when that guy was in the chambers
okay.
class. I couldn't remember what sparked him to do that. But that's when I had a hard time doing that, and I created a lot of enemies. And I just charged it to the fact that they didn't know any better. Because once the sign got up, it was up. You know, and it was honoring someone who had been so instrumental for the Black people, integration. And I thought he deserved something in Greenville to, you know, honor that achievement he had made. So.
And as I drove by, I saw the small park up here. And you were instrumental in that small.
Oh yeah. No, during that time, we were trying to put neighborhood parks in all parts of Greenville. So we had a person, I can't remember who donated that property to us, but we have like a monument up there for that person. They donated that property for us to do that park. And they made it beautiful.
Still is,
And they keep it up. That's one thing I can say. About Greenville, their little community parks. They keep those parks looking good. And speaking of those parks, when I had my group, when it come time to paint some, we used to would just repaint the equipment in the park. I take my club out, and that'd be one of our community projects was to paint those swings and the benches, you know. So they enjoyed doing that.
Okay. Now you mentioned some of the students you work with. What some advice would you give students of today?
Well, let's see. I wrote something down because I wanted to say. You asked me what advice would I give a youth today, and the first thing I said is have faith and trust God. Respect all man or woman. Value your education, and you will always do your best. Be willing to work for what you want. If you fall in some ways, don't give up. Get up and try again.
That's wonderful.
Never accept defeat if it's in your power. And you'll know. Try again. You can't fail if you're not trying.
That's so true. That is so true. I noticed you have several awards over here. And you had mentioned it to me once before that you received a teaching award at one time.
From Altrusa, I'm going to tell you what happened. We put carpet in. I had to take a lot of stuff down, put a lot of stuff up, and I couldn't find everything. But I don't think I have that award out. I have church awards. I have city council awards.
Show it to the camera.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is a state convention award. I was honored as one of the ladies. Outstanding. Let me see what it says. Missionary establishing a legacy from generation to generation. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates. And that's Proverbs 31:31. And it was a Celebrate Me honoree. They chose certain women each state convention to recognize with a dinner and roses and award. And you got to sit up front while thousands of people watched you be an honoree. So that was an honor for me.
Okay.
To get to do that. That was given to me in Houston, Texas.
And there's others on it.
Now let's see, this is my North Central Texas Council of Government Award. And I was proud. I was the only black woman on that council. So I was happy to do that. And I do have a picture where I was on the Attorney General's deal. Now this is one of my plaques. I have a picture on my phone of the other one. My grandson will hang it in his apartment at school. So he has, this is the last one I received from the city.
Okay.
That's good.
That's good.
Okay.
And I also have a clock, but when they was in here painting and putting carpet down, they moved my stuff. So I don't know where, it's in a box somewhere. But this is an award I received from Wesley Chapel for my community efforts. Okay. It was Black History Month. I received that. And this is, I received this from the Ministerial Allowance. Let me see, what is this award? In appreciation for dedication and devotion from GIMA. And this is an award. This is from the Greenville NAACP. And I have other awards, but I don't know where they are. I couldn't get them together. Okay. But I do have a list of awards that.
While you're looking, I know you were really active in the NAACP here in Greenville. Can you give me an overview of some of the activities you participate in while you on the NAACP and what you feel like was some of your achievements?
Oh, we worked with a guy we call Bill Glenn. And I know everybody in Greenville know Bill Glenn, because anything that he thought was going wrong for the black people and white people, he worked for it, and we always supported his efforts. His title was legal redress for NAACP. So we accomplished a lot of things in Greenville. we were able to get like me on the council, and we had other black people, but you know, sometimes it was hard to get us voted in. So he would always work for that. Anything that benefited the black, the NAACP was behind it. When people were being mistreated or misused on their jobs or whatever, NAACP was right there to come forward and help with that.
I remember a discussion that in order to get single member district here in Greenville, it took action from the NAACP and other state civil rights organizations. Were you involved in that?
I did participate in that, and I cannot remember the guy's name that would always come from Dallas to work with us, because he was also on the council in, I think, Grand Prairie, because I would always see him at the council.
The Alcorn?
No.
Okay.
Well, him too, but I can't think of the other guy's name. I can't think of his name. But he would always come in, and they were good about coming in to help us. And please don't forget Theresa Thrash.
Yes. Please talk a little bit about her.
She was our mouthpiece. I mean, she would stand up, and whatever was wrong, she didn't care who was angry. She owned her own business. She didn't care if they supported it, but she would always speak out. And we'd be right there backing her up. But, you know, in any group, you have those who step forward, like Theresa and Bill and Barbara, Glenn. They were the mouthpiece for the group, but we were the supporters. You know, you can't do anything by yourself. But when you step out and it's more than one, it means a lot when you know, when the people see more than one. And we had several members that were very vocal in getting things done in Greenville.
That is good. That is really good. I have really enjoyed this.
And Bill Hobdy came on later, but he was very instrumental, and he still does a lot of work with the NAACP.
Okay. I have really enjoyed this interview today. Anything else you would like to offer?
Well, you didn't ask me all this other stuff, but I'll leave it off.
Okay.
Well, I do want to talk about this. You asked, how did we deal with the Jim Crow
Yes.
laws? And I want to just read what I said.
Okay.
As a child, I don't remember being taught to do anything in particular. When you say Jim Crow, if you're talking black and white, we just did what we saw our parents do. So my parents were law-abiding people. So all we had to do was do what we saw. We knew if we had to get our hamburger from the back door, we did that. But even after we were integrated, you know, that gets old after a while, and it finally stopped in Greenville. But one time I remember traveling to Louisiana with my kids, and you know, you always pack up the chicken and the cake, and you got all that stuff in the car, but they were like, Mama, we want a burger. They wanted a burger. So everywhere I stopped, they would not serve us. And then I drove into a Sonic, and they took my order. And then one of the servers come back and asked me would I drive down the street and come back later. And this was after integration.
Wow.
And I was just so outdone until when I started driving, I kept driving. And the kids, they cried all the way to Monroe. But you didn't, I paid for it. Mommy, you didn't get our burger. And I just couldn't imagine having to deal with that, because we had stopped dealing with that, and I didn't want to keep doing that. But as I grew up, we just did what our parents told us to do. We were always praised for our accomplishments. My dad would always say, "You're an Irvin, so walk with your head up and always know you belong, no matter where you are and who you are with." He would always remind us, don't do anything to mess up or embarrass that name. It's mine. So, I mean, you know, when we were growing up, we knew white sign, black sign. We just accepted it because our parents didn't make a big fuss about it. So, I guess when you say, how did you deal with it? I followed the law. And when the law changed, I followed the change. Even though it wasn't always popular to follow the law, I just did what I know I had been given the right to do. And sometimes you get frowned at, cursed at, or whatever. Didn't rebel, didn't talk back, because you respect elders.
Right.
So, and you just respected people. So you didn't argue back with people when they were cursing you or going on. You just go on about your business, get out of harm's way. And that's how we dealt with Jim Crow.
Let me see. Now look through your questions again. I had one here, but you touched on it. What were some of the obstacles that caused you to stumble? You did touch on it a little bit.
I did. I was just looking at that. I think I pretty much told you that when I come across things that I couldn't do, I educated myself or connected up with somebody who could tell me and help me. Because in life, you're going to always have obstacles. But I always learned to treat them as stepping stones. And I had the motto, if I fall, there's nothing wrong with failing. Try again. Because nobody is perfect and you don't know everything. And I tell my children, I don't care. Even I'll be 8 years old this month. And I still don't know everything. I learn new things. So, and you know, and I think back when I used to would go to the conventions for counsel or whatever, you know, they have the little breakout sessions. And I'd always pick some that was going to make me more valuable to Greenville when I come back. And when I would go, if they talked about something, nothing is ever too minute to ask. And if they talked about something I didn't know, I put my hand up and I ask. And then we get out of the meeting, people say, oh, I wanted to ask that, but I was embarrassed. I was never embarrassed to admit I didn't know. Because if you don't know, you won't ever know if you don't ask. And I train my children that. Even now, if I read and I come across a word, I say, now I know what that means, but I'm not sure what it means in this context. I'll get my dictionary out. And my daughter said, Mom, you didn't know that? I said, girl, did you? She said, well, not really. I said, well, that's why you got a dictionary. You look in your dictionary and never be too proud to say, I don't know. Because when you are big enough to admit, I don't know, then you can learn. That's the only way to learn. So that's how I went through my life. Never being ashamed to admit I didn't know and look for the answer.
We know an election is coming up, and we'll participate in early voting as we are talking today. And the question was, as a race of people, do you think we're better off now, financially, or doing segregation?
Absolutely better now. Because we have, I wrote something, let me see, what did I write?
Okay.
But it's absolutely better. Which number was that, Betty? Oh, you don't, oh. I got all my stuff mixed up.
7. Number 7.
Oh, I said definitely today we have access to more. We just have to work for it. It's available. Nothing comes to you. You have to go get it. I've always considered myself to belong to God. Therefore, I have favor in most things that I want or desire. I'm not saying it's just there. I have just learned to accept what God allows to be. So we have access to more things than our parents did. And it's our own fault. if we don't get out. And I tell people, you put people in office that you believe will work for you. And I don't get upset when people don't agree with me, because when I vote, I'm voting for the man or woman that I think have my issues at heart, because once you put them there, they're the one that push that button and say yes and say no. But if you don't vote, don't complain when things don't go like you, because you didn't voice your opinion. And voting is the only way you can voice your opinion. When it gets like to the president, your senators, your representatives, you put them in place by voting or not voting. So you making a choice.
Yeah. Well, Ms. Tennison, it's been really nice. I want to give you the last word. What would you give advice would you offer for Hunt County as we grow?
I don't know. Because we have people from all areas of Greenville in position to make decisions. And sometimes they don't. And then a lot of times they don't because they don't know. So I tell people all the time, they complain about the streets, they complain about the water. Call your council person. Then if your council person is not doing what you think they should do, next time vote somebody else in. And meet with them before you put them in the office. And then you'll know where they stand, if they're going to be a good fit for you as your leader of the community, the city, and the county.
Okay.
A lot of times things are not done because they don't just ride around and look. But when I first got on the council, I actually did that. At least once a month, I'd ride my area. But you know, after you've been on there a while, you start waiting on people to tell you. And so I learned that if I don't speak out, my council person won't know. If I don't, you know, if I have a problem with the county, I'll call. I have no problem calling. You know, there are certain things they do. There are certain things the city take care of. So I think Greenville's doing a good job.
Okay.
We're growing for sure.
Yes. I want to thank you very much for taking taking out of your time to participate in this interview. Thank you. How did we do, John?
We did good.